Well, this is pretty much it. When I began my perfect, and I decided, you know what? If I have to end my perfect playthrough of Sonic 3 at Knuckles, I might as well just start where it began, with Sonic 3 standalone. But, yeah, when I began this perfect playthrough, Sonic 2 was about to hit theaters, like, the very following weekend. But there are some differences between Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And these music cues are all different. I actually prefer the Sonic 3 tracks to this. For the record, I'm playing this on Sonic 3 Complete because I couldn't find a good US ROM of Sonic 3 standalone. And Sonic 3 Complete actually has like different modes of play for Sonic 3. You could play Sonic 3 standalone, you can play the full Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you can play Sonic and Knuckles, Blue Sphere. And you can even customize level layouts and music animations and everything. And the reason why I'm emulating this game rather than just playing Sonic 3 standalone, I don't want to lose my all my hard work playing Sonic 3 and Knuckles on the Genesis. And I don't want to play Sonic Mega Collection's version because the music's different. You simply can't replicate the Sega Genesis twang, I should call it. I like that boom 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 boom. You know, the most ideal way to play any video game is on the console it originally released in. Because emulating that on other hardware requires some sacrifices. The Mega, which, don't get me wrong, the Mega Collection is great. And oh yeah, you can actually control Tails with a single controller. Sonic 3 Complete. You just press up and then jump twice and you can get Tails to fly. It is a little confusing to figure out what it is you're supposed to do because when you're controlling Tails in the Sonic and Tails run, you actually use the D-pad to move him around. But when you're playing as just Tails, and I prefer all these Sonic 3 tracks to the Sonic and Knuckles tracks. But I'll get to that in a bit with the Act 1 boss. I'm waiting for Tails to respawn here. I probably could have beaten this game a lot faster if I wasn't fooling around like that. But hey, it's a great way to get accustomed to the way the game plays. And I also thought it was a good way to showcase Sonic and Tails teaming up. Since I couldn't play as Sonic and since I couldn't get a second functioning controller on my Genesis, I had to forego the Sonic and Tails run altogether. Which was a shame. So, Yeah, the reason why I chose Sonic 3 standalone for my finale is really because this is where it started. My first Sonic game was Sonic 2, but Sonic 3 standalone was how I used to play it, how I remembered it growing up. It wasn't Sonic 3 and Knuckles, that wasn't until the Mega Collection. I got Sonic Mega Collection on the PlayStation 2. And I just accepted the Mega Collection as the definitive version. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the definitive way to play the game. And I just never played Sonic 3 by itself again after that. So where am I getting with this? Well, again, this is where I started. We would rent this game a couple times, as well as Sonic and Knuckles, but we only used Sonic and Knuckles to lock onto Sonic 2 and play through that game as Knuckles. We didn't play Sonic and Knuckles. And when we rented Sonic 3, none of us could make it past the start of Hydro City Act 2 with the walls and stuff. And then, when I played through Sonic, and then one day in '96, when playing through Sonic 2, I was in Metropolis Zone. I don't remember the act or where I was specifically in that zone, but I wasn't at the boss. And while playing through the game and trying not to die and trying to make my way through this stage, my baby brother and the little baby walker pulled the cord for the Sega Genesis down and slammed the Genesis to the floor. Turned the game off, unplugged everything, and that was it. No more Sonic. No more Sega. Couple months later, my dad sold us Genesis and all our games, so just getting it fixed, and got a PlayStation. Almost a year later, my dad would get discharged from the Air Force, we would move back to the States, and we had a crash at my mom's parents' for a bit, where I played my Uncle Mark's Sega, who was a recent high school graduate, actually. And I played the Sega Genesis games, mainly Sonic 1 and Sonic 3. And I have Sonic 2, so I may do and Sonic 1 was really hard and counterintuitive. So I played Sonic 3, and I had to learn the ropes from there. We had to crash there until my dad could find another job. We found a job out of state in Pennsylvania, and we were set to move in, and so we were set to reunite with him on my 8th birthday. Which was right at the end of the school, which was at the very end of the school year. My last day was June 5th. So, what happened? Was I knew if I wanted to beat Sonic 3, I had to get serious. Because I did not have all the time in the world to beat that game. I only had till the end of the school year on my 8th birthday. Because after that, we were moving to Pennsylvania, and who knows if I would ever get another chance to play Sonic 3 again. Certainly not anytime soon. So, what happened was, because Sonic 3 has a save feature, I gotta talk about another crucial difference between Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Is that the game does not keep track of your extra lives or continues. So, instead of just continuing from where I left off, I decided, you know what, if I'm gonna beat Sonic 3, I'm gonna have to stock up on extra lives. Now, I also did not have time to grind for continues or get the Chaos Emeralds or anything like that. You know, I was curfewed to about an hour per play session. So, I had to play through Sonic 3 without getting all the Chaos Emeralds in 1 hour per day. And instead of just using a pre-existing save file, I had to start over from the very beginning of the game every single time. And I would keep doing it from the very beginning and delete my save file and everything until I... And up to this point in time, the only video games I beaten were either cooperative efforts, like with Tekken 2, or they were educational games like Math Blaster or Carmen Sandiego. I didn't have clue finders yet. So... yeah, it's actually a lot easier to control Tails when you use the D-pad than when Sonic and Tails and you have to use the D-pad. Rather than trying to control Tails alone, where you actually have to keep him elevated by pressing A over and over, pressing the A, B, and C buttons over and over again. So yeah, that's kind of funny. So, I'm going to keep getting out of this just a bit. Or I missed my timing to get out of there, so I wound up beating him a little late. I'm getting better. Alright. So yeah, something I knew when playing this game as a kid, certain philosophies I had to grow up learning is that if you try to take... Oh, and I reset it just to showcase. And I also wanted to correct myself because I was playing through Sonic 3 and Knuckles, not Sonic 3. Because Knuckles is not available on Sonic 3, and I want to also showcase that you don't get to keep your extra lives or continues when you resume from where you left off. Alright. I mean, the really tricky part is trying try to keep Tails from grabbing you a second time. Honestly, I probably would have rerouted my path to gain all the emeralds. In hindsight. So, yeah, everything is still a work in progress here. So yeah, because I ignored the Chaos Emeralds the first time playing through this game, sorry, I'm a little ill, and I can't put this off anymore. When I began this perfect playthrough, Sonic 2 was about ready to hit theaters. And now that I'm ending it, the movie is coming out on DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming devices, and there are already the deleted scenes in an animated short film set in the film's universe, which is a little cute, I will admit, especially if you're a Knuckles fan. You know, I like that Knuckles wants to check out books at a library. It is torn up that they got destroyed. He doesn't call it books, he calls them the sacred tomes. Yeah, it says a lot when you get people that know Sonic to write scripts for Sonic characters and not the people who write Happy Tree Friends. Well, that's really good strats on my part. So yeah, well, I'm just being really careful here. And, so where was I? Oh yeah. And this is something of a recurring story with me playing the classic Sonic games on the Genesis growing up. A general rule of thumb is that the first time you beat the game is always the greatest struggle. Because after you beat that game the first time, even if you come back to it like decades later, the game you just beaten is not as hard to beat as it was before. You don't need as many lives, you don't use up any continues. So my first I had like 30 to 40 lives, not sure the exact number. So I kept battling the boss. I made all the way to launch space with 30 to 40 lives. And well, you know, I needed every single one of those lives to beat the game. And I was taking the slow and steady route to doing it. Only going fast when I knew that there weren't any dangerous obstacles in the way. And whenever I saw an enemy, I took or spikes, I was as careful as I needed to be. And whenever I could, I would get an extra life. Unfortunately, you only got continues off the special stages, just like in Sonic 3. And here's another difference. In Sonic 3, the Act 2 boss theme actually plays in this boss fight. But in Sonic 3 Complete, you get the Act 1 boss as per usuals. Honestly, I kind of like this jam. It works well with this boss. And something I should note is you can actually hear Knuckles' leitmotif when you play the Act 1 boss. So I was wondering what are the Act 1 bosses supposed to be? Who's piloting them? Because it's not Eggman. And my Uncle Mark always said that was Knuckles pilot. That you were fighting Knuckles each and every time you Oh yeah, there's another difference. Some level layout things are different between the two games. Like there's spikes down here in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but not in Sonic 3. And instead of an extra life, you get the spring that bounces you towards the wall that you're trying to run away from. And when we ran to the game, we always died at the wall. I think that's because the level length up to that point in time was basically on par with your typical level length. And I'm going to completely bypass this early portion because I can. And reminder, there was no YouTube there, and this was also in early to mid '98, so we didn't have game facts. The internet was at its infancy, so there was no Sonic world maps or anything like that either. So we literally had to come up with these strats on our own, and we did that basically by taking our time and exploring these levels. And there's another skip. Because we have 6 emeralds, I can skip the first special stage ring in Act 2. This would just be a whole lot faster. I missed the jump. And a recurring rule of thumb is that whenever I beat a Sonic game my very first time, I would be down to like 1 or 2 lives left. You know, in Sonic 3 it was 1 life, in Sonic 1 it was 2 lives. And interestingly enough, I did not exhaust them all in the final boss in that game. I exhausted them all in Scrap Brain Act 3. Following the intended route, so to speak. So but in Sonic 3, I I had like 40 lives, and I was down to my last life. The final boss is actually quite tough if you don't know certain things like instant shield or shield abilities, or you don't have access to an elemental shield because you died a bunch of times earlier on. And now you can no longer get any more extra lives. So what you had at that point was all you were gonna get. If the final boss grabbed you, you would lose all your rings. Or die. And this even, in Sonic 3, in the original Sonic 3, this even applies if you were supersonic. In Sonic 3 Complete, it does the same thing with the Sonic 3 and Knuckles thing, where instead, if the boss grabs you as supersonic or super Knuckles or anything like that, it just bounces you up in the air. Alright, and I just initiated a supersonic, and the invincibility theme is supposed to play when you turn to supersonic, which is also the Sonic 3 title screen. But in Sonic 3 Complete, it just speeds up the music. I guess the workaround is so you don't lose out on these amazing tracks because you're super. And you can also turn off the invincibility. Now in Sonic 3 Complete, you have to press A, B, and C at the same time, and that'll turn you super. Just pressing one of the buttons twice will just cause you to use your shield ability. Which I think is a great improvement. Additionally, if you press all three action buttons at the same time while super, you can turn it off. Yeah, you get this track when you're supersonic in the original Sonic 3. So long story short, I was able to beat Sonic 3 with just one life left and no rings. And I did that by taking my time and only hitting the boss when he's going back and forth. Honestly, I think it's a lot harder than usual for me to lose to these games. It would take a ton of effort to recreate just how my first time beating Sonic 1, 2, and 3. Because I have to do things. Because it's really tough to suck on purpose in a way that's convincing. That doesn't to say that I don't have my moments. You've seen that through my Sonic 3 and Knuckles playthrough, so it's not like I'm like a super player or anything like that. Hell, even in my speedrun phase of Sonic 3, you can still tell that I'm not, like, the greatest at this game. But, you know, I had almost 2 months worth of practice playing through Sonic 3 and Knuckles over and over and over again. I've had a ton of time studying the map, stage layouts and whatnot, in order to find the most ideal route to make it through each stage or reaching certain special stages. And those two giant rings in Act 1 of Marble Guard are the reason why I'm thinking about rerouting a future speedrun of Sonic 3 100% by getting the Emerald and Marble Guard Act 1 instead of Hydro City Act 2. I'm just waiting for Tails to not be a dumbass. And in Sonic 1, my first time beating that game, well, I already knew the stage select code, but even then I couldn't beat the game, even with the help of the stage select code. So wanna know what I did? I don't need to use the top for this section. That was a close one. I don't know if this could technically be considered faster, but I think it is. I think I found an equivalent route for Sonic to take. But honestly, I like the route that I went with. So yeah. In Sonic 1, my method was to use the stage select and grind to get grind for continues and extra lives and shit. Reset the console over and over and over again until I got A, my fair share continues, and B, when I get all the Chaos Emeralds. And the last time I would always get not just a continue, but an extra life as well. So I'd have and then I would just take my sweet ass time. And then just take my sweet ass time grinding for rings and extra lives. At least the extra lives I knew where to find. So I have enough lives and continues to make my way through Sonic 1. And this would have happened in the summer of 2001, so I would have been 11 years old at the time. And the reason why that's important is for a number of things. Number one, I would be spending a week or so over the summer. We would frequently, one at a time, spend an entire week at my grandparents. And the music doesn't resume when you clear a stage in Sonic 3, whereas it does in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Well, what happened after that was that because I had gotten accustomed to beating Sonic 3 so many times, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do Sonic 1 now. He doesn't have Sonic 2, so I'm gonna do Sonic 1. a different extra life jingle. And I did not mean go in there, so I'm out. By the way, I forgot another thing. In Sonic 3 Default, the only bonus stage that you get is the gumball one. You don't get the slot machine. You don't get the light ball one. Those are Sonic and Knuckles stages. I mean, I am just cruising through this game. Okay, I'm going to be pretty blunt with it. I had some emulation issues, just played the game straight, where the game will just hang on a frame for like 50 minutes, for like 10 seconds. Or I would just sticky my inputs and stuff. So I basically had to take frequent saves to make sure I had a functioning run of this game. Not a great run, not a task or anything like that. Just to make sure I'm not like constantly running into shit over and over again and losing all my progress. And yeah, I went the intended route for Scrap Brain Act 3 and Sonic 1. And that final stretch, when you go through that, has so much water and no air bubbles at all. So you have to go against your careful instincts and try to bum rush your way through all the obstacles with very little rings. They don't replenish your rings or anything. There are no air bubbles. You just have to, and there's a ton of dangerous obstacles you have to get through. And because of this, I kept dying. Losing all my lives and having to use up my continues and start Act 3 all over again. Luckily, if you use a continue in Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles, or even Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you actually continue from the last checkpoint. But Sonic 1, Sonic 2, you had to start over from the very beginning of the stage. Whenever you lose all your lives and have to use a continue. Which sucks. But eventually I was able to make it to the very end of that watery maze. Even though I lost all my rings during the final climb. Because that last obstacle is very difficult to make. I mean, that final obstacle is very difficult to pass. It didn't matter because I found out that you just jump on the springs, go through the ceilings, and you're out of Act 3. There's no boss fight for you to fight at the end of Act 3. Instead, you go straight to the final zone and the final level of the game. Even though, again, there are no rings, just like in Sonic 2. That's not what I want to do, but that's nice to know. And yes, Carnival Night Act 2, even with all the stress I know, still takes a really long time to finish. Like an abnormally long time. And believe it or not, I believe Sonic 1 was the only game that I beat, that when I beat the first time, I was able to beat it without taking a single death against the final boss. I only had 2 lives left, so that wasn't a huge loss or anything like that. But at least it's good to know that I didn't die a single time beating Sonic 1 during the final boss fight. But at that point, all I could do was be cautious. And it was also the very first Sonic game that I was able to beat the first time, and I did so with all the Chaos Emeralds. So I got the good ending instead of the bad one. However, there was no Super Sonic. Now for Sonic 3, after I had beaten the game and actually made a decent habit of beating Sonic 2 and 3 a number of times instinctively before going after the Chaos Emeralds. So with Sonic 3, I would basically grind at launch base zones so I could just beat the game once I was done. And I only knew the location of like 4 of these giant rings, including one at the very beginning of Act 1. I'm trying to figure out. Because, you know, because you could just go back, because when you beat the game, you could go back and revisit old levels. If I had known better, I probably could have done Marble Garden or Carnival, or even Carnival Night, even though I didn't have access to all of them in Carnival Night. But I did in Marble Garden. But regardless, I would just use launch base because even if I failed, because it was convenient and I could just beat the game immediately after. And that's exactly what happened. Like all the Chaos Emeralds, I did not change Sonic's portrait for whatever reason. But I decided to beat the game anyways, and that changed after I got Super Sonic, and that changed Sonic's portrait. So yeah, I want to explain briefly why Knuckles' track appears in the Act 1 boss. The reason for the change in tracks is because a good number of the Sonic 3 tracks were composed by Michael Jackson, who wound up going uncredited because of his first sexual assault allegations against minors. Sega decided to distance themselves from it, but because the game was so far along in development, they had to keep his original compositions. And, yeah, the spring that helps us get up there to reach the higher portions of the stage are no longer there, so I need to get Tails to fly. Incidentally enough, I found an alternate method of getting up here with just Sonic, so that was nice. So yeah, the reason why the Knuckles theme appeared, but as I was saying, so when Sonic and Knuckles came out, they literally replaced as many tracks as they could from Michael Jackson's compositions, which included Knuckles' theme, the title theme, which also includes the invincibility and super transformation themes. And they also, in the Extra Life jingle, which was also Michael Jackson. However, when they did the Sonic 3 and Knuckles thing on Sega Genesis, they could not override the Sonic 3 tracks for Carnival Night, Ice Cap, and Launch Base because they did not appear in Sonic and Knuckles. So those were the only 3 tracks that were retained in Sonic 3 and Knuckles that were from Michael Jackson's compositions. Were from Carnival Night, Ice Cap, and Launch Base. Actually, the end credits theme was also retained. However, you could only listen to it in the sound test for that game. But as I was getting, it's very likely that when composing the Act 1 boss theme for Sonic 3, Michael Jackson was either assuming... I have one of 2 theories. Number 1, Michael Jackson composed the Act 1 boss theme with the eventual fight against Knuckles in Sonic and Knuckles at the Hidden Palace Zone in mind. Number 2 is he probably also thought that Knuckles was that you were going to be fighting Knuckles at the end of Act 1 in every stage. Turned out not to be the case. Either narrative works just as fine because you still hear Knuckles' distinct theme in the Act 1 boss theme. And once you hear that... Sorry, I can't do the music. I can't do the acapella music. But either narrative supports my theory. It's possible that Michael Jackson did not know what the Act 1 bosses were gonna be, and just assumed that Knuckles was gonna be your opponent at the end of Act 1 every time. So he included incorporate Knuckles' theme into the Act 1 boss. But I can absolutely confirm that no, Knuckles is not the one piloting those bosses. It does not make sense. And the fact that that the Act 1 boss theme in Sonic & Knuckles does not bear Knuckles' leitmotif, does not include Knuckles' theme song in it, not even in the Sonic & Knuckles version of either track. Basically leads me to believe that Michael Jackson simply thought that you fought Knuckles in Act 1 at every stage. Either that, or he included that Knuckles theme here. And we're about to see the similarities between Knuckles' theme right here, that's playing right here, right now. Alright, and this is the Act 1 boss theme. Can you not hear that? Can you not hear that in the background? That is Knuckles' theme placed on top of the Act 1 boss theme. Once you hear that track long enough, you can't unhear it. And that is the reason why I think that Sega believed that the Act 1 boss fight originally, that the Act 1 boss fight for Sonic 2 was originally going to, for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, was either going to be against Knuckles himself in every stage, or that track was going to originally play against Knuckles in Hidden Palace Zone. Or for that stage, among others, was cut for time. Now, Sonic 2 is a little interesting. My Uncle Mark eventually would buy a copy of Sonic 2, but a year later after I beat time. Well, by that point, I was 12 years old. And my first play session, and returning to that game, I would get stuck at like stupid stages I would be able to get past without much hassle. Stages like Mystic Cave, because I kept dying at the boss and you don't get any rings from the last checkpoint of the stage. Or Oil Ocean against all the bullshit enemy placements, as well as the oil itself. And then you got Metropolis Zone and all its bullshit chicanery. Wing Fortress was definitely a really tough stage for a first-timer, but I actually got to see the bonus round for the boss fight for Wing Fortress for the very first time. It was definitely my first time reaching Sky Chase and Wing Fortress in my entire life. Zones I only saw from my own dad's playthroughs of Sonic 2 as Knuckles. So I never saw either stage as Sonic. I would get game over against the boss, and then the next time I would struggle mightily against the boss in the stage itself, but would eventually beat him. And I would lay witness to Death Egg for the first time to see what kind of stage Death Egg Zone was gonna be. Oh, it's outer space? Or what the layout's gonna look like. And I immediately drop Silver Sonic and I die instantly. I did beat him good eventually, after watching him go through all his full phase and then dying to the spike shooting thing. Oh yeah, here's another core difference between Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, is that Sonic leaves Tails behind. And this actually factors into the narrative of Sonic and Knuckles, because in Sonic and Knuckles you can only play as either just Sonic or as Knuckles. There was no Sonic and Tails, and there was no Tails. which basically means the narrative of Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles is that heading into the final battle against Eggman in Sonic 3, Sonic leaves Tails stays behind to repair the biplane, and to just hold the fort until Sonic finishes his job. Finishes the job that he left off with at the end of Sonic 3. And you get this cool final boss battle that I wish was in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, with the track in the skybox and everything. But, oh well. And this boss is a cakewalk. Obviously, every boss is a cakewalk with Sonic. But if you were to play this in Sonic 3, if he grabs you as Super Sonic, he will bang you against the wall, against the ground, and you will lose all your... knock you out as Super Sonic, and you lose all your rings. But in Sonic 3 Complete and in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it just causes you to bounce into the air. And then in future playthroughs, and that's it for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And I'm also going to show off all the endings for Sonic 3 and Knuckles because I have no intention of doing 2 more episodes of this. Tails is pretty lame because they just recycle everything in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So yeah, Tails isn't supposed to feature into the second half story of Sonic & Knuckles. Because of the way things went down. So, I would get game over, I would have to often fight with my uncles, my brother, and my cousins whenever we came over to visit. So, and because it was the holidays, I had a ton of competition. Eventually, I was able to get good enough to make it all the way to the final level in under an hour. And I had like 30 lives and like 10 continues because I was farming like hell for those. And sure enough, one by one, I ran through all of them, all my lives, got game over, ran through all my continues, my uncles who want to watch whatever sports game was going on, or my cousins, or my brother who also wanted to turn with the Genesis, were complaining. Sometimes they would turn the game off even though I still had continues left. Other times they actually let me finish, and my mom would take me to to my grandparents every weekend because they were still together at the time, if not for very long. Every weekend, even during the holidays, until I was able to beat the game. And sure enough, one time I ran through all my lives, all my continues, had 1 life left, and I was able to beat the final boss. And man, that was a feeling, and I got the poster and everything to show for it. Because these games basically were the nexus. This is where it all started. Sonic 3 was the first game I ever beaten, Sonic 2 was the first game I ever played, and Sonic 1 was the first game I achieved a perfect playthrough in. And even then, the specific facts of my story were greatly distorted. I may not even remember the details correctly, and I may have contradicted myself a number of times. But I do remember the first time winning both of these games. And so, I think it's sad to see these playthroughs come to an end. I began this when Sonic 2 was hitting theaters, and now it's about to end as it's about to hit store shelves. I bid you all adieu, And this is Mike Gorin sign out. Have a good day.